An issue for women church planters is the whole issue of leadership and how leadership is perceived, not by women themselves, but by those we seek to lead. It is different for a woman who plants a church versus a woman who leads an existing church. If you come into an existing church, even if the leadership of the congregation of that church is not fully supportive, they will say of you, well, I was here before she got here and I'll be here when she leaves. But for a church planter, that is a little bit different, because if I move into a town and I am developing a congregation from scratch, those folks who disagree with me theologically as a female pastor never have to darken the doors of my church. And so there are some natural barriers, I think, that are unique to women church planters. And I'd like to talk about those just for a moment, just as a way of opening the conversation. This isn't about victimhood. This isn't about feminism. This is simply an acknowledgement that there are some natural barriers in place that are challenges for women who choose to plant churches that we might think about. And if we can learn to lead past them, not fight against them, not use them as excuses, but learn to lead past them, we can help more women who are called to plant churches. And clearly, women are called to plant churches. If we can help more women to plant successfully. So I want to talk about 4 natural barriers. The first one would be leadership as a theological issue. Clearly, because 50% of Christians, statistically speaking, don't hold our theological position, that means that when I walk into a room, I have, statistically, half the room to work with in terms of developing a congregation. And so how do we motivate folks to understand theologically what it means for women to lead in the ministry of God? I maintain over and over again that God surely did not expect only half the world to preach the gospel until all nations believe. Can you imagine the impact when the whole world is preaching the whole gospel? The second theological, theological barrier, cultural barrier, or leadership barrier is leadership as a cultural issue. Whether we acknowledge it or not, we view leadership differently according to gender. We have biases. So I guess I just want to ask some questions. What do we want our leaders to look like? And how do we feel about women who lead and their approach to leadership? What do we feel about a more nurturing style of leadership? Or what about a woman who is a mother who also leads? Are we willing to accept a broader understanding of leadership and maybe get past some of those subconscious biases that we hold? A third natural barrier is leadership as a resource issue. This is one specific to church planters. Resources to equip women church planters are still very much in the developmental stage. And so, the boot camps that are designed to train church planters, even benchmarks designed to help us understand how to build a church, may be designed with a male audience in mind. There may be very few coaches who are specifically trained or whose call is focused on women planters. And so there's a concern for resources out there. And then the fourth bias, I guess the fourth leadership bias, is leadership as a denominational issue. And I'm thinking especially about those denominations who may not support women in every area of leadership life. I maintain that the growth for female pastored church plants may be different than the rate of growth for a male pastored church plant. And yet our denominations may have benchmarks, may have expectations that don't reflect the natural barriers that we face. So as we've already said, we're drawing from a smaller pool and we're pushing against culture. We may need to be more sensitive in our understanding and approach to designing benchmarks so that women have every opportunity to be successful and to feel successful, and even more importantly, to feel supported. So as we face the challenge of raising up women church planters, I want to encourage you to encourage women around you to consider that as an option, to find others who can support them, and to transparently, honestly acknowledge the barriers that they may be facing so that you can best pray for and support those in your circles who are called to plant churches for the coming kingdom.